everybody. Welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley. And today we're here with my good friend, Angela Schneider from Big White Dog Photography and also One Last Network, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute. Welcome, Angela, to the podcast.
Hey, Nicole. How you doing?
I'm doing so well. It's so good to see your face. And I guess for all of you guys out there, hear your voice.
I'm getting used to the sound of my voice on podcasts. It's weird.
It is weird. It is weird. You just learn to not listen or just get over it.
Yeah. The worst is my laugh. I don't know.
Oh, I love your laugh. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It comes from all the way down here.
It's the best kind.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, there's probably going to be a lot of that laughter on this podcast. I have a feeling, even though we might be talking about some non as laughable things. But before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about your photography journey, when you started your photography business, and kind of what that whole thing looked like.
Oh boy. Well, when people ask me how long I've been taking pictures, I think back to when I would steal my brother's point and shoot, which is on the shelf behind me, and take pictures of our rough collie Princess. And that evolved into me bugging the photography club teacher at my high school to let me learn on his Nikon film SLR. I'm dating myself. This was the 80s. I was a bit of a high school nerd and I spent a lot of time in the darkroom and I just loved it. I love the smell of fixer. I am so strange like that. And it evolved into a journalism career, mostly sports journalism, that took me from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland, British Columbia, and Alberta. When I moved to Alberta, though, I joined the Calgary Sun, and we had I always had to do my own photography working in small town newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And we had such a large photojournalism staff that I didn't need to do any of my own photography. So I got rid of all of my film gear, mostly because I was sick of it too. After 13 years of having to do
and having to shoot what you were covering, not necessarily shooting what you wanted to be shooting.
Yeah, I mean, I loved shooting hockey and rugby and soccer. That's so much fun. I hated the grip and grins. We called them,
To grip and grin.
yeah, grip and grin, check presentations and standing there, people just standing there, small town community journalism.
Yeah.
And then I met Shep, and he changed my world. I had already gotten laid off from the Calgary Sun, and he was there, but I jumped into marketing and communications. And from that point, I was embedded in the most soulless industry I could possibly have gotten myself into. It was really funny because it was around about the time that social media was taking off for businesses and marketing. And we preached this word authenticity. And there just didn't seem to be anything authentic around marketing and using social media to market. It was so unsocial what we were doing. And with various other things that happened in my life, I had a bit of a breakdown and I went to see a therapist, and she said, "What brings you joy?" And I said, "Being out in the mountains with my dog." I had started hiking, and she was like, "Go do that and write about it. You're a writer, write about it." And then I'm standing. So that's about the time I launched my first blog, way, way back in 2007. And of course, I can't write and not add pictures to my stories.
Right.
So then I had to figure out how to get pictures, but I didn't have a camera because I'd gotten rid of it. So I took my I was standing on the top of a mountain in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, the most beautiful place in the world. And I have this beautiful dog with me, the most beautiful dog in the world. And I'm like, I don't have a camera. This is stupid. So I went and I took my Christmas bonus that year and I bought myself a Nikon D40.
And then it all started.
And it all started. And
Yeah.
I love taking pictures of the wildflowers in spring. And I had an affinity for dead trees. I don't know why.
Because they're all gnarly and they have amazing texture.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
interesting shapes and stuff. And of course, my lens started to find its way to Shep.
Right.
And I just started taking pictures of him wherever he went and whatever we did. And then he got sick and left my world. And I realized that I had all of these pictures of him and I needed other people to have those pictures of him.
Mm-hmm.
Or not of him, but
We're right. Of their dog.
of
Yeah.
their dogs. And I promised him that I would do this, that I
Mm-hmm.
would figure out a way wherever I was. By that point, I was engaged to my now husband, but living in Kelowna, British Columbia, and I started to research dog photography and what was going on in Spokane, and because I knew I would be living here. And it took me a little while after that to get around to launching the business. I ended up with the most soul sucking marketing job on the planet. And after 18 months of that, walked out flipping off my boss.
Oops.
I'm pretty sure no one who knows me is surprised by that story. And it began, and I have found that creating these images for people is one of the most soul fulfilling things I've ever done. Like even more so than my sports writing days. I thought my sports writing days was what made me a human, and telling the stories of athletes all over Canada. But no, this is it.
This is, yeah, a whole new level.
Yeah. It's really just fulfilling work to do this and to see the impact that it has on our clients, especially when it comes to end of life pet photography.
Yeah. When
Segue.
did when did thank you for that segue. When did you start the business then? Like when did you go from just like, "Hey, I'm creating this blog," to, "Oh, I want to do this for other people." Like what year was that approximately?
2017. So,
Okay. All
ooh,
right. Yeah.
I'll turn that off.
Um
So yeah,
and
last
then
year was my 5th year.
okay, gotcha. When did you was that when you started Big White Dog? Cuz I remember you rebranded at some point.
Yeah. I started out as Noses and Toes, and
That does not fit you.
no, doesn't it? And that was part of the problem too, was that uh it didn't it wasn't that it didn't feel right. It wasn't until I started getting my name out there and hearing other people say it. And I always say this, it felt like that pair of underwear that will not get out of your crack. I was constantly pulling at it and trying to make it fit. And then somebody dropped that word on me, and I hate that word.
Does it begin with M and it's 5 letters?
No,
Oh.
it's the 4-letter C word.
Oh.
Cute.
I am
You thought I was
dying.
going to say something else.
I did. I am dying. Yeah, cute would not be anywhere on your brand. Like, let's sit down as Angela and create my brand strategy. Cute, 100%. That's the top of the line for me.
Let's go back to that word authentic.
Oh, you're like, all right, this business name days are numbered.
Oh my
Time to
God.
rebrand.
Yeah, and the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so I wanted it to be more about, I wanted my photography to be more about not just the dog, but also the location.
Yeah.
I do live in a very beautiful area of the world.
Right.
It's not the Rocky Mountains, but it'll do. uh, and people would always comment, like, you have the greatest locations.
Yeah.
So I chose to celebrate that by rebranding. And of course, the name comes from the two beasts that drive me every
Right.
day, Shep and Bella. And um, I think it just better exemplifies who I am and what I want to achieve.
Well, and I think that also goes into how you have like a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, think, "Hey, my target market's anyone that has a dog."
Yeah.
And, because we're like, "Yeah, we just want to photograph whatever." But now, like, you've niched your business into, yeah, you have an adventure dog. Like, yeah, okay, you might photograph a Chihuahua, but most likely you're photographing bigger dogs that are out there that people have bought as hiking partners, like that they, adopted to go out and explore the wilderness. So all of your messaging, all of your design, your website, all of those things can consciously and subconsciously talk to those adventure dog owners, really.
Yeah. And it continues to evolve as your business should,
Mhm.
because I'm finding myself even more niching toward women who find their confidence and
Mhm.
their power by being with their dog and by doing dog things with their dog,
Right.
because that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And as much as we say you are not your ideal client, I kind of am.
Right.
I,
Right.
I need to look for people like me. And
Mhm.
so that's where my messaging is going to start to evolve even more to attract those women who just invest their everything in their dog,
Yeah.
because
I
their
love
dogs
that.
aren't just their best friends, their dogs are their soulmate.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And that just goes to show too, because people start to get all concerned of like, oh, there's so many more pet photographers popping up in my market now. Like, that's not a bad thing. That increases the awareness that this is a legitimate thing, that people aren't like, "Hey, is it weird that I'm getting my dog photographed?" And then people start searching for, "Hey, let me look and see what pet photographers are out there." And then they start to see, and when you dive into that messaging and like figuring out who it is you really want to serve, you are speaking directly to that person, and they are not going to hire anyone other than you because you're speaking to them. And I think a lot of people get really scared to get that specific with their messaging, but it doesn't mean like you'll never attract somebody, that doesn't just think their dog is family, that maybe is like one step down on that messaging that you're going to, that they're just like, yeah, the dog sleeps on the bed, but maybe, it's just slightly not that main person you were targeting. Like they still very well might book you. It doesn't mean that you've like said no to everybody else. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I have my list of nevers.
Yeah. Oh,
And
this
then,
is a good conversation too, is to have that no list.
yeah, and it isn't just weddings and newborns, because
Right.
Jesus Christ, don't let me near a baby. Um, but I am never going to do a studio shot. I thought I
Yeah.
was going to do studio work. I had the lighting. I had those cheap setups that you get on Amazon for about $50 with the continuous lighting. That's absolute crap. Don't buy that crap. I'm never going to do studio. I
Right.
am never going to do powder shots. People, stop putting dogs in unsafe conditions. I am never, I have my list of nevers.
Mhm.
I am still going to get people who don't want to do great epic adventures, and that's
Right.
cool. I still want to serve that market. But what I am marketing is epic adventures.
Right. Yeah.
It gets complicated when I throw in the end of life stuff, because how do I message that? And that's my journey this year, is
Right.
marrying the end of life stuff with the epic adventure stuff.
Well, yeah, I think there's an angle there of, oh, I'm even thinking like one last epic adventure with your dog, even if you can't be out hiking. You know what I mean? Like you can still be like, hey, here's all of these things that you've always done.
Yeah.
Like let's remember this, even if we can't go out and do it now, kind of thing. So I think that's yeah. Um, Gosh, I was gonna say something else with that too. Um, question, that's what it
Hmm.
was. About your end of life, like, when did you discover that you wanted to kind of serve that market? Was that with the very beginning when after you lost Shep and you were looking back at your images, and was like that from the beginning of starting your pet photography business that you knew you wanted to serve
Does
that
anybody
market?
really get into this business with the idea that they're going to end up shooting dying dogs? I don't know
No.
why, right? Um, so it wasn't a market that I wanted to serve.
Yeah.
It was a market that I was just naturally serving. I realized in, I think 2018 that 2019, sorry, I realized in 2019 that fully one third of my clients were coming to me for dogs who were in advanced years or diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Hmm.
And I started reading about pet loss grief, not even thinking about the fact I had unresolved grief issues from
Mhm.
losing Shep, just that I saw this as a market and wanted to be a better service provider to those clients. Because one of the things, especially since I've dived really deep into this subject, people don't know what to say.
Mhm.
People find it awkward sometimes to be around people who are in the phase of what I know now to be anticipatory grief.
Mhm.
Didn't have a name for that up
Right.
until about a year ago. Um, and we want to support our clients and we want to say the right thing, but oftentimes we don't know what that is.
And
Or
to clarify, the anticipatory grief is someone whose dog they know their days are numbered. So they know that yeah, they're in the
yeah,
last
exactly.
hurrah, yeah.
And sometimes we do say things and we're well intentioned around
Mhm.
saying it, but it doesn't land.
Right, right.
So I wanted to learn about how to support those people. And I started reading a variety of books. And this is where the discussion starts to get really tough.
Yeah.
Then my mom died,
Mhm.
and it will be a year on January 28th. And as you can see, it's still difficult. We had a we had a complicated relationship.
Right, right.
uh, we were probably too much alike. Or I was probably too much like my dad, and that drove her fucking crazy. And around that same time frame, this other thing popped up. And a photographer on the East Coast was giving away sessions to friends and family who had dying dogs.
Mhm.
And she's made quite a name for herself and has developed a network of photographers who want to go out and do this, um, or people with cameras. Um, and our friends, it didn't start to affect me directly,
Mhm.
but many of our friends on the East Coast started to get inquiries around end of life pet photography. And when people found out they had to pay
Right.
these photographers to just show up and then that they had to expect to pay $2,000, 2,500 for artwork afterwards. Those people got really rude. They either ghosted our friends or said some very rude things. And we came together, especially the people who belong to the blogging group that I lead. We came together and had a roundtable discussion on what to do. And we came up with messaging on our websites to add and around end of life pet photography art, to better promote our memory sessions. But when I got back from Nova Scotia and the funeral
of your mom,
yeah, I just had this burning in my brain that there was something else. Like I wanted to start focusing on everybody's why. And I offered the idea of doing those interviews to another pet photography podcast, but got shut down really quickly. They didn't want other generated content. So I took Bella on one of our favorite hikes. And for whatever reason, when I'm out hiking in the woods, my brain just empties and then starts to fill up with crazy ideas.
Same.
And the one thing that got into my head was you left the marketing and communications world because you were sick and tired of building somebody else's dream and you wanted to build your own dream.
Right.
So why in the world would you contribute to someone else's podcast when you can just do your own?
Right.
And I started coming up with ideas. And then the podcast, I actually started brain dumping everything into a Facebook message to Marika Moffat. Because I knew that whatever I was coming up with, it was checking off all of her boxes. And she would be like, do it. Just do it.
Yeah, right.
Do it. And I came up with the idea to how do I build this as a business, not just as a podcast to help pet guardians with pet loss grief. That's what the podcast was going to be about. But why do anything if you can't make money doing it? So I came up with the idea to build a directory.
Yep.
For pet photographers who want to market pet loss grief, and then teach them how to be better content creators, which is one of the things I'm really good at. So I have the framework for that. And then I have a coaching session with Heather Lottinen.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, right? This cannot go well.
Or does it?
Or does it?
It just at the time looks like, oh boy. Then afterwards you're like, oh, that was really good. It's like then you get that massage that like they're working that one area. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to tell them to stop. That really hurts. That really hurts. Okay, but now it's good.
Yeah. Oh, it feels so good. Yep. And Heather said, why don't you go become a grief coach?
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Wait, what? Is that a thing?
What? So I did. I am now a master grief coach certified under Kathy Cheshire, a renowned grief expert, and I am a pet loss grief companion certified under Two Hearts Pet Loss Center and Colleen Ellis, who is such an amazing human being. And I am working towards my grief educator certification under renowned grief expert David Kessler. I will be graduating in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it culminates in me having created my own course to lead pet photographers to be a better service provider for their clients who come to them in the anticipatory grief stages of their pets' lives.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I know this has been, because I talk to you regularly and work with you closely and hair the dog and all the things. And I know you've been planning to work on this for, really a year, but really like 9 months of like I don't think people can appreciate sometimes. I mean, any of you guys, actually a lot of you probably can, because go back to when you first started to think like, "Hey, I want to build a photography business." Like every minute of your day often is your brain thinking about that project and what's next and what am I working on and how is this going to work and what about that and what about this? And I mean, this is no different. Now it's just you have two businesses that you're
Mm.
constantly thinking about. Like
Yes.
that.
And,
So those walks in the woods become even more important
oh
because your
my
brain
God.
just can't slow down otherwise.
And I can't go for a walk in the woods right now because Bella is recovering from TPLO surgery.
Oh, she'll be better soon with her special little, what's it called? Support.
Yes, my ESD. I'm one of those people that has to keep a notebook nearby, even
Yeah.
even for the 2 a.m. wake ups,
Mhm.
because something will strike
Yeah,
and
and the 2 AM wake ups, like, if you don't write it down within 5 minutes, it's gone forever.
it's gone. And then sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're like, "What the no."
I find that I get some of my most inspired ideas is that, like, I usually wake up, because I'm in my mid-40s now, so, like, my kids like to laugh at me that I can't sleep, like, all night without having to get up and use the bathroom at some point, and really, it's like I probably could go back to sleep, except then I lay there and I'm like, "Well, you're just gonna have to, like, you're gonna get woken up again to have to go to the bathroom soon, so you might as well just get up and do it now." Anyway, this is getting to be too much information for a podcast, but I find that the time after that and when I, like, go back to sleep, it's like dream sleep, but still, I guess, kind of light enough that I'm waking right back up through it. Like, man, I get some great ideas. Not to toot
Mhm.
my own horn, but like my dreams create some good ideas. And I need to write those down immediately because then they're gone.
Stop making new businesses, Nicole.
I know. I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Neither am I. I got the message from downstairs like, "No more new businesses. I want you to spend time with your family." What? Who does
What, do I hear something?
that? So
I love it.
I do want people to know that I didn't just launch this course willy-nilly, just like you didn't launch Hair
Right.
of the Dog willy-nilly. I gathered together some founding members, a few of whom have since dropped off, but because of time or involvement, desire, or what have you. But I initially conducted the grief training for a group of 6 pet photographers who are my founding members. And they also get to contribute to the podcast at onelastnetwork.com. And so since then, Jessica Wasik has started marketing herself as a pet loss grief specialist, and her inquiries have doubled.
Wow.
Um,
She's a rock star, that
oh,
one. Shout out to you, Jess, if you're listening.
oh my gosh, her energy. I turned 52 this year, Nicole.
Oh, I can't send you the Sally O'Malley 50 Saturday Night Live skit.
No,
And I like to
wait.
kick, stretch, and kick. Okay, everybody's homework right now is to go to Google right now. Like, pause this podcast, open up your Google or Safari or whatever, and search SNL I'm 50. You're welcome. Okay. Anyway.
Too funny. So my certification under Two Hearts came after I created the initial grief training course. And so everything that I learned from Colleen is now incorporated into the pet loss grief training, and it will evolve again
Yeah.
as I continue to learn, just as you continue to evolve the academy. But the feedback that I've gotten is that people feel more confident going into their end of life pet photography sessions, that they're not going to say stupid shit,
Right.
and they
Right.
know how to uh, give a little support. Our training is based around storytelling
Mm-hmm.
and what's called the continuing bonds theory, where when we create memories, i.e., epic adventures,
Right.
with our pets, we can use those stories and memories as healing vehicles in the days, months, and years following their loss.
Yeah. I
So,
love it. I mean, that
yeah.
makes total sense. You look back on all the great memories for anything, Yeah.
For the longest time, I couldn't look at pictures of Shep.
Mhm.
I couldn't look at them, especially the ones from his last few months,
Yeah.
because I am a walking friggin' cliche. I have lived in the guilt world around
Mhm.
Shep for a very long time. Whenever I would see photos of him from his last few months, I would beat the crap out of myself. I didn't
Mhm.
see it. Why was I so stupid not to see it? Why didn't I get him to the vet sooner? Why? How could I? Blah, blah, blah. Just
Right.
beat the crap out of myself. Oh, I've forgiven myself in so many ways since I started my grief training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I mean,
I
that's
love,
not going to change. Beating yourself up is not going to change anything.
no, it's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
And the guilt is just us. It's having regrets.
Right.
And and if we can help our clients through those stages and let them know that what they're going through is normal, and um, what they're feeling is normal,
Mhm.
we can help them get on a path to healing,
Mhm.
and maybe not have them exist in the world of guilt that I did for
Right.
the last 8 years.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's a huge service and need to offer. I just had actually a client from, oh gosh, must have been mid-teens client, so a client that I had in 2015, probably, maybe even 2014. I think probably 2015. Their dog had passed away, and she sent me an email just this past year saying that, they lost their dog, and for the longest time she just couldn't look at the photo that she had, upstairs on her wall. And but now she has started to again, and she's like so thankful to have them,
Yeah.
so it like goes goes round full circle, that you go through that point of and probably it's probably helpful too to be able to, you don't want to warn your client, hey, artwork that you just paid a lot of money for, at one point you're not going to want to look at it, but you are going to in the future again. Like, you can't say it like that, but there's definitely ways, by understanding how this process works, that you can, set up expectations and just serve your client better.
Mm-hmm. I have a plan to invite one of my pet loss grief specialists, who is also a sales expert, to come
Mm-hmm.
in and do a workshop with us to help us refine our processes around sales.
That's huge, because I hear that as a challenge a lot of times, where maybe you do the session and then, maybe the pet passes away before you're able to have the sales session. And then you feel like, as a photographer, it's like, and immediately, at least for me, goes to like, not that I don't think I'm taking advantage of anyone, but it it no longer feels fun. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
oh god, what are they thinking? Like, they're upset. How are they going to look at these? Are they going to pay me now for pictures? But of course, they're still worth something. It's all of these things get unlocked in that situation
Right.
where we're all just a hot mess.
Yeah. And you should still get paid for your work.
Right. Yeah.
Keeping in mind that you are providing a service
Mhm.
to that client still. And while it may be tempting to give away the farm, you've invested so much in your photography business
Mhm.
that you should get paid. And you have to remember that vets don't do euthanasia for free.
Right. Right.
The urn that Shep's ashes are
Right.
sitting in was not free.
Right.
The cremation was not free.
Right.
None of these things are free. So we shouldn't be expected to do our photography for free.
Yeah.
Too.
And
And
I think a lot of that is our own permission, because a lot of it doesn't even come from the clients expecting things to be free, more from us thinking like, how can I charge someone in this situation for something that I love to do, and like I want them to have these things. So, and it doesn't quote cost me anything. It's just quote my time, and some digital files. So we get all up into the shame guilt spiral of like, well, who am I to charge them?
I'll
We're
tell you what,
offering just as an important service as anybody else on that list that you just mentioned.
I'll tell you what, my time is worth something.
Right. Agreed. Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know a single one of my member photographers who don't take a little of their profits and turn it into a gift for those clients.
Mhm. Right.
But one of the things we really want to stress in a lot of our messaging too is to not wait.
Yeah.
Gosh, don't wait until your dog has a tumor exploding out of its shoulder.
Mhm.
Let's do this when they're young and happy and healthy and bouncy and and we'll still get together again for your end of life session because those are vital. They really
Yeah.
are. Those last few days. But gosh, get it done. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, speaking from someone that lost their 6-year-old dog in 5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you never know when it's going to
Mhm.
happen. You don't. And that's the other reason too why it's important for us to charge.
Mhm.
We can think that our dog is near his time, but one of our member photographers had her client reach out and say, I can't remember the dog's actual name. We'll call him Chief because that was the first dog my family ever had. It's my default name
I
for a
like it.
dog.
That's a good default
Chief.
name.
Chief is still around.
Yeah.
Chief went through chemotherapy and is in remission. Isn't that fantastic? Yes,
Yeah.
it is fantastic. Now, can you imagine if you had done that session for free?
Right. 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 Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that, we need to get a death watch certificate or something from a vet, no, but that's why it's so important that we charge because you don't know.
Right. And it's really easy to I think start that off with like, "Oh, well, I'll just do it this one time." But
Oh,
oh
one time
man,
becomes
like
two times and two times becomes four times and then
exactly.
they
And
can't be
then
friends.
you get to the point where you're resentful, and that's no way to serve the client. You don't want to serve a client in that kind of space from a place of resentfulness.
Well, I look at these people with cameras that are running out and doing these sessions for free, and if they're doing them every weekend, boy oh boy, are they going into burnout fast.
Right. Yeah. And then you can't serve anybody.
Right. Then
Yep.
you're done. You hate your camera. You throw it away.
Mhm. Mhm.
You get rid of it like I did back
Yeah.
in the 2000s. It's the
Yeah.
2000s I got rid of it. You
Yep.
know, it doesn't. I mean, it is a service, and it's an important service. And the other thing I wanted to mention about it too, from a business aspect, is that I remember how social media disrupted industries,
Mhm.
uh, particularly my two main industries. First,
Right.
journalism.
Right.
Social media has damn near destroyed newspaper journalism
Right.
and completely overhauled marketing and communications.
Mhm.
So, disruption is a good thing. They provide a service to the point where we have to remember that the people who are using their service are not our client.
Hmm.
And I learned that from a very smart individual named Nicole Begley. Not every person is your client.
Right.
And there was something else there.
Well, can I just add on to that too? That it's the same thing as when we see this new company come through and it's like, hey, here's free shoots and $15 digitals and this and that. Like,
Totally.
you guys, it's not worth your stress to worry about what anyone else is doing. Period. Doesn't matter. Like, does not matter. They're gonna get burnout. Like their quality is not going to be as good. Like there's going to be something. There's always something that you have that is going to be above that and worth charging for. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. No, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to go straight into Ferris Bueller there. No, but God, what was I gonna say? And I'll say it again. Oh, I know what it was. There's always room at the top. There is always room for providing a business and a service of unparalleled quality, of great images, beautiful artwork, and just service and being able to connect with your client. I mean, people are busier than ever these days. You know, I feel like we all slowed down during the pandemic and we're like, oh, this is nice. And then all of a sudden now it's like
We're
times
slammed again.
10 speed. We're like, oh my God, what is happening? And we were used to that, like really slow, like, oh, I have nothing on my calendar for the next 5 months. like it's pretty open to every minute being scheduled. So people are busier than ever and they're willing to pay for someone to deliver them a higher quality
Totally.
service product and take care of all the details for them.
Total sidebar.
Yeah.
You want to know one of the most important things the pandemic taught me?
What's that?
How much I hate bras.
And buttons on
Oh
pants.
my God.
Currently wearing leggings. Yes, thank you very much.
Pajama pants.
Oh, even better. I have the leggings on because Cammie's at daycare on Tuesday, so I had to leave the house and drop her off with her trainer because we're learning some things.
But one of the ways we have to look at disruption is as an opportunity.
Oh, 100%.
This is an opportunity for us to look at our industry and our businesses and ask ourselves, how should we be messaging our businesses better? Or how should we be providing a better service to help to educate these clients with anticipatory grief for their pets? Educate them on why they should be using a professional pet photographer and learning how to be a better service provider for them by joining One Last Network and taking the grief training.
Shameless plug. Totally works. Yeah, absolutely.
It's an opportunity. Thank you.
There's
Thank
always
you to that gal over on the East Coast. Thank you, because not only has it I mean, it's a very small part of what I'm doing now. Right. My mom, my dad, and Shep are the primary drivers behind this project.
Right.
But thank you for kicking me in the ass and like showing me that this is where I should be. And thank you for showing these teeny little cracks in our industry that we can fill and improve our industry and businesses.
Yeah. No, I am a firm believer that any disruption is always an opportunity.
Yeah.
You might not want to deal with that opportunity right now, but it always is. I think we're going to see a lot of that rise over the next couple of years with all this AI stuff. People were scared when the digital camera came out, when it went from film to digital. Then people were scared when, the moms with the cameras started going. And then there were people who were scared. There's always some reason that our collective industry, and really the whole world, for any industry you pick, wants to run screaming, saying it's all gonna end. It's all gonna end. We're all doomed. Like you can think that, but how's that gonna serve you? How's that actually gonna help you compete? Or you can say, okay, this is the situation. How do I rise above it? How do I invent my business? How do I change my messaging? How do I reach my people that can, you know, really truly benefit from what I'm offering.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way.
People are going to be surprised by this. I am a prolific blogger.
Yeah.
I am a writer of 30 plus years. I am so addicted to Chat GPT right now.
Oh my God, me too. And when I can't get on, I'm really sad.
I am shameless about throwing topic ideas in there and getting a framework for a blog post.
100%. And then I've been using it for brainstorming too.
Yeah.
Like I still, used to just have to go to thesaurus, but now I would start there and then like, give me 10 ideas for this. Oh, give me 10 more ideas for this.
I am so looking forward
incredible.
to the Academy webinar on AI because I want to see where she is going with it, because I'm using it already.
Yeah.
And I'm, I love ideas. So
yeah. Oh, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And the saddest I was is because recently they just they've been so busy because everybody's starting to use it. And then I couldn't get my saved ones because like, oh look, it's saving. And then I couldn't get them, like, oh, where did they go? So now I copy and paste anything that I want to hang on to. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Samesies, my OneNote is full.
No. I'm like, I will gladly pay for this. Let me pay so I can have access.
My husband is retired from high tech, and his last several years were based in coding artificial intelligence. So he knows all about it, and he has long since been poking at me and going, I can write a script to replace you in my copy edit.
Yes, you can, but it's only getting 90% of the way there. It still needs some magic.
Right. And FYI, I'm a part-time copy editor at the local newspaper here in Spokane, and he says that he can write a code to replace me. And I looked at him and I go, dude, newspapers are still trying to catch up to 2005. Come on now.
You got a while for this one.
I have a job until at least 2040.
I love it. Hysterical. Oh man. All right, to wrap this up, this has been a fun conversation here. Let's wrap it up. Other than checking out One Last Network for people to come and get better at their offerings for serving this type of client, do you have one or two kind of tips you want to leave somebody with that is serving this?
Yes, I do.
This market. Yeah.
Yes, I do. First of all, the grief training is available on demand. You do not have to be a member of One Last Network to take the grief training. It is more expensive to not be a member and take the grief training. The grief training is $400. To become a platinum member, it is $300. Platinum membership includes grief training. We also offer our platinum members the opportunity to submit to the podcast. So that also comes with geo exclusivity so that we are not watering down the content. So our platinum members get to declare their counties. And if someone applies and wants to own that county, they cannot. They will be invited to silver membership instead, and then we'll have to pay extra for the grief training. But my one big tip is to just shut up and listen. When you're at a session with a client who is in the anticipatory grief stage, and this can apply to any session, honestly, shut up and listen to your client. Let your client tell their story. This is not about you. One of the things we often default to when we're talking to people in grief is, I am thinking about you. I know when that happened to me, no. It was not about you. It is about your client. Let your client tell their story and give them the space to tell that story in a non-judgmental space. I don't expect any of us to be judgmental. Judgmental? Did I just say judgmental?
Yeah, whatever. It's all good. We know what you mean.
I don't expect any of us to be judgmental around pet loss grief.
I like judgmental better.
We all understand that we shouldn't be saying, Well, what are you worried about? It's just a dog.
Rig's right. Yeah, none of us would actually say that.
Honestly, I will punch any pet photographer in the throat who dares to say that. But they do have people in their lives who may have said inappropriate things to them. So give them an open, compassionate, non-judgmental space to tell their story, and leave yours at home for an hour. That's all.
Yeah. I love it. Is there a way, like when they're telling their story, that you can support them and basically say like, hey, I get it, I've had that too, without hijacking it for your story?
Yes, and you can learn all about that in the grief training on onelastnetwork.com.
Gonna leave us hanging like that? Oh, jeez.
Nicole, I can't give away the farm.
Right, so we were talking about this whole time. All right. Well, Angela, this has been a great conversation, and I know that a lot of our people find it super helpful. So you guys go check it out, onelastnetwork.com. Angela, your photography is bigwhitedogphotography.com.
It is.
Yeah, perfect. And so go connect, and then you can connect on Instagram. What are your Instagram handles?
At Big White Dog Photography and at One Last Network. And all of this information will be in the show notes that I write.
That's right. Thank you.
That's my other part-time job.
Because spoiler alert, you guys will never get an email from me if I had to write it. So yeah, if you guys want your emails on Tuesday, this is what happens. Write a good one here, Angela.
I will.
No pressure. No pressure. It's only your podcast interview.
Oh.
I
might have a whiskey first.
I love it. All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Have a good week. Goodbye.
Bye.